Good evening everyone. Welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly feature in English that provides a preview of this week's news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. First, the headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama arrives back in Dharamsala after successful visits to Japan and Mongolia. Sikyong testifies before the Canadian Parliamentary Committee on International Human Rights. Sikyong addresses Tibetans in Frankfurt and New York. Tulku Tenzin Delek Rinpoche's niece testifies before the European Parliament. Office of Tibet London calls on members of Swedish Parliament. Office of Tibet in Geneva calls on permanent representative of Belgium and Czech Republic to the United Nations Human Rights Council. The New York Times publishes an article on demolitions at Larungar. Video circulating online shows patriotic education exercise enforced on Tibetan nuns. Tibetan spiritual leader His Holiness the Dalai Lama returned to Dharamsala on Tuesday after completing successful visits to Japan and Mongolia. His Holiness was received at Gagal Airport by Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Singye, Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament in Exile Khenpo Sonam Denpe, and officials of the Central Tibetan Administration. In Japan, His Holiness the Dalai Lama gave a series of public talks in Kyoto, Koyasan, Saitama, and Yokohama. His Holiness also had extensive interactions with Japan's lawmakers, senior Japanese priests, Korean Buddhist, and Japanese students. In Mongolia, His Holiness conducted teachings at Kandé Thekjeling Monastery and Yiga Chuling Tazang in Ulaanbaatar. His Holiness also took part in an international conference on Buddhism and science, interacted with young generation of Mongolia on universal values and the Buddhism in the 21st century. His Holiness's next public engagements will be in Delhi from 9th to 11th December. On Wednesday last week, Tibetan political leader Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Singye appeared before Canada's Parliamentary Subcommittee on International Human Rights. Sikyong highlighted the dire political and human rights situation inside Tibet under the Chinese rule and expressed his deep concern over the ongoing destruction of Larungar Monastery. Sikyong called for an immediate resumption of constructive dialogue with China to resolve the Tibet issue and lamented on the lack of positive response from the Chinese side. Sikyong called for an immediate resumption of constructive dialogue with China to resolve the Tibet issue and lamented on the lack of positive response from the Chinese side. Canadian Member of the Parliament David Sweet also spoke at the hearing in support of Sikyong and explained the need for increased global attention on the Tibet issue. Other Canadian parliamentarians present at the hearing include Randall Garrison, David Anderson, and Ms. Ikra Khalid. On Thursday last week, Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Singye gave a public address to the local Tibetan community of New York and New Jersey. Representative Pemba Tsering of Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. accompanied Sikyong at the gathering. Sikyong made a strong call for the Tibetan diaspora to promote and protect Tibetan unity and integrity by disregarding differences based on religions and sects. Sikyong emphasized that the primary vision of the middle way policy of the Central Tibetan Administration is to preserve and promote the unique identity of the Tibetan people while ensuring the unity of the three provinces under the framework of the genuine autonomy for Tibet. On Friday last week, Sikyong visited Frankfurt City in Germany and addressed a gathering of local Tibetans about the need to preserve Tibetan identity and culture. Sikyong also spoke about Kasha's 550 strategy to resolve the issue of Tibet and said that assuaging the sufferings of Tibetan people inside Tibet remains his topmost priority as political leader of the Tibetan people. Nymal Hamo, niece of late Tulku Tenzin Delek Rinpoche, testified at the Human Rights Subcommittee of the European Parliament on Tuesday this week. The hearing was chaired by Ms. Elena Valenciano, Chair of European Parliament's Subcommittee on Human Rights. Speaking to over 50 members of European Parliament, Nymal Hamo informed the committee on the arrest, detention and suspicious death of Tulku Tenzin Delek Rinpoche and urged for an independent investigation into the death of Rinpoche. Nymal Hamo is currently on an advocacy tour to Belgium and France, jointly organized by the Office of Tibet Brussels and International Campaign for Tibet Europe. The representative of the Office of Tibet in London, Chimbit Tsering, visited Stockholm, the capital of Sweden, last week. Representative Chimbit Tsering met with Swedish parliamentarians, officials from the Asia and Pacific Department of the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, During the meeting with the parliamentarians, the representative thanked them for their interest and support for the Tibetan cause and requested them to consider ways of raising the Tibet issue in the Swedish parliament. All the parliamentarians that the representative met expressed strong support and pledged to undertake tangible measures to support the cause of Tibet. The representative of the Office of Tibet in Geneva, Mr. Ngotup Doje, met with Geert Muley, new ambassador of Permanent Mission of Belgium to the United Nations, and Daniel Mick, the deputy permanent representative of Czech Republic to the United Nations. Representative Ngotup Doje briefed the ambassador about the deteriorating human rights situation inside Tibet, particularly the religious oppression inside Tibet and destruction of Larungkar. Representative expressed his heartfelt gratitude to the government and people of Czech Republic for hosting His Holiness the Dalai Lama in Prague last month. Both the ambassadors of Belgium and deputy representative of Czech Republic expressed solidarity with Tibetans and assured support in addressing the rights violations inside Tibet. The New York Times published an article on demolitions of Larungkar titled "China Takes a Chainsaw to a Center of Tibetan Buddhism." The foreign correspondent for New York Times, Edward Wong, wrote, "The chainsaw wielded by workers demolishing a row of homes signaled the imminent end of thousands of hand-built monastic dwellings here at Larungkar, the world's largest Buddhist institute." The article further pointed Larungkar has become one of the most influential institutions in the Tibetan world. The teachings of its senior monks praised, debated and proselytized from here to the Himalayas. Now Chinese officials are tightening control over the settlement in what many Tibetans and their advocates call a severe blow to the Tibetan religious practice. Despite the communication crackdown in Larungkar, videos and pictures of appalling situation in Larungkar continue to emanate out of Tibet. The videos emerging from Larungkar have caused much distress among Tibetans. A latest video circulating on social media shows Tibetan nuns dressed in military uniform singing the song "Chinese and Tibetans are children of one mother." According to the voiceover for the video, the women are Tibetan nuns who are undergoing patriotic education exercise after facing eviction from Larungkar Monastery. So much for this week. See you next Friday. Have a good weekend.